Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by my corrupted co-host, the diabolical Darren.
Hiya, good to be here as always, and this is kind of like a labour of love for me, so I'm looking forward to this one.
And yeah, today's podcast is going to be devoted to 1987's Opera, directed by the one and only Dario Argento. We've done a few giallo podcasts now over the last few weeks and that, and I think me and Darren would agree that the 1970s was very much the golden age of giallo. You'd agree there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it's regarded as most of his best work come out in the 70s. For me, I'm a big fan of his 80s stuff, this along with Phenomena.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think he really come into his own at this time, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, the 80s did actually have some really good giallos churned out. As I say, I think the 1970s was very much the golden period, the golden age. But going into the 80s, Argento was having films such as Tenebrae, which I personally regard as one of his best. Of course, Phenomena that you mentioned in 85, and Opera, released in 87, which is without a doubt one of the best giallos of the 80s. At least in my opinion. Now, this is, from what I understand, this is Argento's favourite film. This is, of all the movies that he worked on, this is the movie that he actually loves the most, because he's actually a massive opera fan. And he used to go to the opera a lot as a kid. He's always had a love for opera. As a young child, he actually talked about how he used to fall asleep. His mum used to take him, but he used to fall asleep. But as he got older, he really had an affinity, a love for opera. So this is a film that he really really put his heart and soul in. I believe Suspiria prior to this was his favourite film he regarded as his best movie.
Right, I think with this film he had the chance to direct a fully fledged opera.
Yeah, that's right.
Before this film happened.
Yeah.
And I think because of the amount of money he wanted to put into it and the production value and all that, it sort of fell by the wayside. So then he decided to make a film about the opera. And of course he went on 11 years later to make Phantom of the Opera as well, but that's another story.
Yeah, in 98, yeah. Now, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're perfectly right. I understand, the kind of inception of this film is that, basically, I believe that he said something like, it would annoy Argento when people would look away during kind of the scary and the brutal moments in his film, and he jokingly suggested taping pins under people's eyes so they couldn't actually look away. He's kind of said that as a kind of a dark joke, if you will, and that's essentially where the whole idea. Now, this is a very sadistic film. In its concept alone is very sadistic. And from what I understand, Argento really wanted to push himself with this movie. He really wanted to take it kind of one step further and really kind of veer into the bizarre. And he certainly did that with this movie. Because obviously the main character of the movie, she's actually forced to watch these horrible murders being committed in front of her. There's nothing she can do about it. She's got these blades, sellotaped underneath her eyes. It really is. There's a very sadistic streak to this film.
The killer's very much into S&M. You can see as a strong contingent of that. And I think films to come later like Saw and Hostel really do. This has a lot more in common with them than what people think. And that's not to suggest that it's torture porn or anything like that, because this film I think is far better than any of them.
Yeah.
But they do come from a little bit of influence, I think.
Yeah, well, with this film as well, the lead girl, Christina Marshallak, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, I think she was only 17 years old when she actually got cast for this, and I think Dario Argento had actually seen her in a commercial for Armani, and he was immediately smitten with her beauty. She had a real beautiful presence to her. But as you probably know, these two didn't get along. During the whole of filming, they did not get along. They argued for the entirety of this film. And basically, right, from what I understand, is that she did not want to become any kind of sex icon during this film. She was constantly saying, look, my shirt's too tight for this. There's a shot on my bum I don't like. I don't think she'd ever seen an Argento film prior to this. I'm going to assume she hadn't. Because the women in his films are generally sex icons, if you will.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so... but yeah, it was a complete... they didn't get on. They really didn't get on. There was a lot of arguing going on, and I know that Vanessa Redgrave was originally supposed to play the role of Mara Chekova.
Yeah, that's right.
The diva, who we never actually see, interestingly. We hear of, and all of her scenes in that are done kind of like POV in that. Now, right off the bat, isn't it, with this film, okay, this movie doesn't really adopt... I mean, visually, it's great to look at, but it doesn't use a colour palette like something like Suspiria in 1977. But you could really tell, I mean, the movie has a lot of artistic merit. For anyone that knows Argento, fluid camera work, the way he films a scene, he's very experimental with his camera work. And I think you'd agree, right from the get-go with this film, for example, getting the POV from Mara Chekova, he really goes all out with his camera work in this film, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. I would say some of his best stuff, best camera. It's stylish. This film is always on the move. The camera is always on the move. Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of his peers watching this must have been like, hey, the hell did you do that shot? And really in awe of him. Yeah. And then you got the opening with the start with you've got the crow's eye. Yeah. And you can see the reflection of the opera in the crow's eye, which I think is just a fantastic opening. Yeah. Really is so stylish.
Yeah, they used a lot of ravens for this film. I believe there was about 150 odd ravens actually used, and there was many. I can't remember the exact number, but there was many ravens they weren't able to retrieve back. They found their way through the opera house into various nooks and crannies, and they actually lost some of the ravens.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there was around 150 ravens that they used. And ravens, what I understand as well, are quite hard to get hold of. They're quite rare in Italy, but they actually had people bringing them to them for the movie. And, there's obviously a scene in the film where, quite late on in the film, where one of the ravens is actually feeding on a human eye.
Yeah, that's, there's a great scene coming up, which we will discuss about the death of Dario Argento. But for me, my favourite scene is that scene with the crow later on, where he's circling the opera house. And we will get to that.
Yeah. Well, that was actually a pig's eye, by the way. It was actually a pig's eye. And apparently what they did is that basically they kept some of the crows purposely hungry. So there was a guarantee that one of them was going to actually eat that kind of on cue.
Yeah.
So yeah, they actually used a pig's eye. But the scene that you're talking about, I mean, let's just quickly jump into that scene. Actually, again, this is a great example of fantastic camera work. I actually remember watching this, thinking, "Wow, how the hell did they do this?" So basically, what we get, obviously, in kind of a stunt to kind of reveal the killer at the end of the movie, they decide, because earlier on in the film, isn't it, the killer actually attacks and kills, I believe, 3 ravens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's while he's trying to. He either breaks back into the opera house or goes back to the opera house, and is he doing something with the dress? I think.
Yeah, he's destroying the dress, and the ravens manage to get out, and he swipes his blade at one of the crows, and from what we understand, ravens are very clever birds, and apparently they don't forget. It's not just elephants that don't forget, because according to this film, ravens don't forget either.
Is that a true fact?
That I've never actually looked into. I know they're very clever. I know ravens are incredibly clever birds. That I'm unsure of, though. We'd have to contact David Attenborough for that, I think. Or Google it. So later on in the film, one of the characters actually decides, do you know what? We'll let the ravens out, and hopefully the raven will find the guy that actually attacked them. So we get this circling of the opera house from the POV of a raven. And from what I understand, they used a device. Basically, they removed the chandelier from the ceiling, and they used a device which is kind of, I believe it was known as a trellis, and they used it from outside the roof, and it had an arm which was worked with a remote control, and they could basically manoeuvre it any way they wanted around that room. And Argento and the crew weren't even in the opera house; they were outside manoeuvring that thing.
It's absolutely incredible to watch it. It's it's quite harrowing as well, because you've got this crow, or raven. Sorry, if I keep forgetting to.
Yes, right.
Yeah. But as he's swooping down as well onto the the people below, it's such a great visual. I think it's, again, I'll say it till the cows come home, I think it's one of the best scenes he's ever done.
I actually agree. I'll just say this. Opera's not my favourite Argento film. It's not my favourite, but it is one that I really do like, certainly without a doubt. It is one of the best giallos of the 80s, without a doubt, in my opinion. Let's just quickly, that scene is a definite highlight. There's another scene we're going to come to shortly, which is, again, another definite highlight of the movie. It's a scene that everyone talks about when they talk about this film. Let's talk about, the kills themselves. Now, the killer in this movie, obviously, as we said, ties her up, a very sadistic nature, I believe, because she actually gets a telephone call, doesn't she? Where, what is it, he says, "Tonight you make your debut as Lady Macbeth." We get that kind of creepy voice over the telephone.
That's right, yeah. I think it happens a couple of times in the film.
Yeah.
Coming on to that, the start, the whole Macbeth thing is supposed to be like a cursed opera.
Yeah.
And basically, Dario, during the film, did actually, although he, like you say, he highly regards this film, he did actually think he was scared of it becoming a cursed production.
Yeah.
Because of all the, Macbeth.
Yeah, there's a lot of superstitious people out there that firmly believe that Macbeth is cursed. And there was a lot of incidents during the shooting, in fact. There were incidents that happened. You can put it down to coincidence, curse, or whatever. Ian Charlton, I believe. This was the last movie of his career, and he was actually involved in a car accident during filming. And it wasn't long afterwards that it was found that he'd actually contracted HIV.
That's right, yeah, I think he died two years after this film.
He did. And obviously he's the director in this film and a suspect. Certainly, without a doubt. When I first watched this film, he was a suspect. He was like the prime suspect. There's a scene, isn't there, in this film where, now I'm just going to quickly get back to this actually. There's a scene in this film, the first murder, okay? The victim is William McNamara, by the way, in his first film. If you've seen the 95 serial killer thriller Copycat, he's the killer in that movie.
Yeah. He comes across as like really. I really like the character because he's quite like a sweet boy. He's quite innocent.
Yeah.
But that first kill, is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, he's obviously she's tied up and he's basically stabbed to death. There's actually an awesome shot. And not to sound like a sadist, where the killer plunges a blade right through his throat, and you see it through the inside of his mouth.
Oh, it's incredible!
I mean, you can tell it's a fake head, but so what? It's just an awesome shot, and what really adds to these murder scenes, because it's a pretty brutal murder. He's stabbed to death, and the guy, he's actually putting his hands up, isn't he? And he's trying to block all these stabs and that.
Yeah, it's very much done. The actual knife coming up through the mouth and all that, but after that, there's quite a lot of stabs to the torso, and it's very much done. I don't know if you've noticed it, but like the Psycho shower scene.
Yeah.
It had to be a bit of a homage to that, I think.
Well, all how it's cut, yeah. And the thing is, right, he's lying there. It's that music that plays. We get that real kind of up tempo, hyperkinetic music, don't we, during the murder scenes in this film?
Yeah, which goes totally against type of the murder scenes themselves, because when you think there should be music just like normal music, there's these heavy metal tracks, and for me, I really like that. And I know a lot of people hate it. I know they do. No,
I really liked it. I thought they fit the scenes well, personally. They really kind of add to it. I mean, the thing is, I believe the music was courtesy of Bill Wyman, who was actually a bassist for the Rolling Stones, actually, at the time, right. And Claudio Simonetti, who was the keyboardist for Goblin.
And some of the Simonetti music in this film is absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's another. Now, this is what I quickly wanted to say, actually. So we get this brutal murder. She witnesses this. I'm not sure if it was in this scene or it was a scene later on in the film. There's actually a scene where the killer is kind of caressing her. It's very sexualized, and they're saying like, "Oh, it's not. What is it? It's not true. You aren't. What is it? You aren't frigid. You loved it. You're like a bitch on heat."
Yeah, I think that's that might be during the scene where he kills the one character who's making the dresses.
Yeah, okay, yes, the second scene then. But there was a bit again. I think this kind of comes down to writing, actually. So she's just witnessed this brutal murder, which presumably would scar you for life. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she goes out in the rain, makes a telephone call. The director picks her up, who was certainly kind of a suspect to me upon first viewing this. And then she's just like having a conversation in the car like nothing's happened. Talking about like, what is it again? About, there's that myth, isn't there, that opera singers are very good in bed and all this and that. And they apparently have sex shortly before singing because it helps their voice.
That's and right, it's very bizarre.
I'm sitting there and thinking, what? You're having you've just seen a guy brutally murdered. You're probably going to need therapy now. And you're sitting there with this random kind of conversation. So I think it's just, just kind of the writing in that. And when I started to suspect him, of course, as I'm sure a lot of people did, is the scene where he says, have you got a boyfriend or is there some guy, giving you unwanted attention? And then he claims he sees someone outside with binoculars watching through the window.
That's right, yeah. And I think the first time I saw the film, like yourself, I thought he was the killer. But there's I think there's two red herrings, but he's certainly the first one that's on screen. Yeah. And with his character, I don't know if you feel the same, but at first you're kind of offish about him. You sort of, like you say, the things he says and that. But as the film wears on, I really like the character.
Yeah. Oh no, I liked him. I thought he played the role well. Yeah, I mean, Hitchcock. Argento actually noticed him in Gandhi, 1982. Richard Attenborough. Right. He actually had a great performance in that film, and that's really what kind of landed him the role for opera. Argento really noticed him in that movie. But of course, the fact that he says, "Oh, this guy was outside with the binoculars," but we don't see the guy, and apparently he's just now disappeared. It makes you think, it points the finger towards him. Hang on a sec, was there really a guy there? Or is he just kind of like, lifting the shadow of doubt away from him?
That's right, yeah. He's definitely made out to be the first, real big red herring.
But the second victim, now, we'll quickly say this as well before I actually forget. Now, Daria Nicolodi, of course, is in this film. Obviously, the once partner wife of Dario Argento. Now, from what I understand as well, originally she didn't want to be in this film. She actually thought the character was very thinly written, and basically her relationship had ended with Dario Argento, and she just kind of wanted to distance herself a bit. But apparently what convinced her to take on this film is the scene that we're going to talk about now. There's her death. It's her character death, which I think is a definite highlight of the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So basically, what happens is the police comes in. Now, what's interesting, this whole scene is done really well, actually. It really is quite suspenseful. Betty actually puts eye drops in her eyes, doesn't she?
That's right, yeah, and we get the feeling that it's supposed to be the policeman Suave, who's ironically played by Michelle Suave,
who's
to make Stage Fright.
Yeah, he same year as well, wasn't it? 87.
Yeah, and they're very similar, not similar in, exactly the same way, but they got similar theme to both films, really.
Yeah. Michelle Suave, who plays Danielle Suave, the police officer that's come to watch over, and that comes through. Now, what's interesting is we don't get a look at him. You don't get a glimpse of him. She's got eye drops in, so he goes in, and then he kind of does a disappearing act, which is kind of strange. I'd love to know where the hell he got to. But then we start to believe there's apparently the real Suave comes to the door, and then, of course, they don't know which one is actually the killer. Is it the guy that's already come in, or is it the guy outside the door?
Yeah, it puts you on a sort of like false sense of security, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, where's this going to go? And it's like some good cat and mouse action. As well, up until the kill.
I'm not quite sure where he went, though, because she looks in the room. He says that he calls out to her, and of course, you know, he says that he's in the living room, stay there, but then she looks and then he's gone. So I don't know if he, like, nipped to the toilet or whatever, but I've got no idea where he went during that whole scene, in all honesty.
It's an Argento film, you've got to
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was there to create suspense and stuff. So, of course, Dario Nicolodi's character looks through the peephole. The police officers, you know, trying to show his badge. She can't get a good look at it. But then she realises, hang on a sec, I know you, I recognise you. And what happens then, Darren?
Well, yeah, so she goes to look through the keyhole, as you say, and then we get this shot, which I don't know how he filmed, it's absolutely incredible, of the killer shooting her through the eye hole of the door. And then we get her flinching. You can see the wound in her eye.
Yeah.
And then there's like blood coming out the back of her head, which carries on and goes into the phone. So it disables the phone as well. So it's quite clever in that respect.
Yeah.
And it's just, well, it's one of the best kills I think he's ever filmed.
It's really well filmed. I believe that it was kind of inspired by Hitchcock. The mechanics behind it was inspired by Hitchcock. For example, using large items that are supposed to look small. Basically, I think what they did, they used a cannon with a string, kind of spring. And basically, somebody on the other side blew through a straw, a small ball made of blood. And basically what they used kind of a large gun barrel kind of replica thing. So it's just, it's incredibly well filmed. It's really...
Yeah, the thing with Dario Nicolodi in this film, like you mentioned earlier, she didn't want to do it. She thought the character was too flimsily written. She had a major issue because Dario Argento's girlfriend at the time is in the film.
Yeah.
She plays a small part of the director's girlfriend. And apparently, during the death scene, she actually thought Argento at one point was trying to kill her.
Yeah, well, he probably was. I mean, Argento was actually admitted to having dark fantasies. He actually admits to that. He's not ashamed to admit that. They had real censorship issues with this film, not surprisingly. And he actually went in front of court, you know, in front of the board, if you will, and actually said, you know, you're stopping me from making my fantasies. He actually said that.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's kind of like, you know, he is a misogynist. You know, Argento has actually said he finds nothing better than, you know, brutally murdering a beautiful woman on screen. You know, and he was like, for example, getting back to the lead star of the film and that, she didn't want to be seen as a sex icon. She didn't like wearing clothes, and it caused a lot of problems. She was like, I don't want to show off my breasts. And he's like, what's the problem? They're breasts. They're just breasts. There's nothing wrong with showing them off. And but I think
the thing is, she didn't get on with anyone. Apparently, she didn't get on with the cast, the crew, anyone. The lead actress.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal was with that.
Yeah, but you know, I like the whole backdrop of the opera. You know, for this film and that. You know, the whole. You know, Argento often does it actually, and he's actually said this that in a lot of his films, in fact, the lead character, an artist, obviously in Deep Red, was a pianist.
Yeah.
I believe the lead character in Four Flies for Grey Velvet, wasn't he a singer or in a rock band or something?
He was a drummer, yeah.
Drummer?
Yeah. He does do that quite a lot in his films, and I think this sort of art, you know, theme, he does use quite a lot.
Yeah.
Have you noticed again with every time the killer comes on screen in this film, you got like a artistic sort of shot of a pulsating brain?
Yes.
And he does that again. He did that for quite a few of his. He done it with the eye. If you noticed, in one of his films as well.
Yeah.
And that signals like the killer's, you know, there. I think it was. I'm trying to think now. It was done in Deep Red, wasn't it? When we covered Deep Red.
Yes, it was. Where Deep Red's actually the killer's actually putting makeup on, aren't they?
Yeah, and you got that little lullaby of the child's lullaby.
Yeah.
And we then know the killer is there, like.
Yeah. You know, let's talk about the second murder in this film. Basically, we come to learn that the killer has actually left a bracelet, presumably their bracelet, on the costume, on the costume that Betty's due to wear. And the killer has to try and retrieve it. And of course, you know, the woman's attacked. She's like the stay. That's the thing. Quickly, actually, I want to say the dubbing in this film. There are some characters that really sound quite laughable.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There's one character in particular. I don't actually know. I recognise the actor, and I don't know his name. I've seen him in plenty of other Italian films, and he's the guy that he's alongside Mara Chikova.
Oh, the heavy-set guy.
He provides the gift. He's the one that gives the gift to Betty, and of course they pour it out, don't they? But yeah, the dubbing to him, it's just you know, unfortunately, I mean, it kind of like is quite often the case, but it's just the face and the voice really don't mix, do they? They really don't fit.
No. I think one of the pluses of the film, the lead girl, you know, Christiana Marchallette, did actually dub her own voice, and I think that is one of the pluses, but a lot of the others didn't.
Yeah, this guy only appears in about 3 scenes of the film in that, because obviously Betty receives a gift, doesn't she, from Mara Chikova, and they're thinking, you know, what is it, poison or bile or whatever, and they pour it out, don't they? I think they pour it down the toilet or something.
You've got that fantastic shot of it being poured down the sink.
Yeah.
And again, that's a very clever shot for his time, that was. But the actor you're on about, I don't know his name, I haven't got it written down offhand, but I'm sure he was in a few Lamberto Bava films.
He probably was. I've definitely seen him. He's one of them guys, you know, quickly getting back to Mikhail Sahavi. I mean, you know, he's a guy, obviously, he was in Demons, appeared briefly in Demons. He was in A Blade in the Dark in 1983, directed by Lamberto Bava. He was a guy that was in loads. He was even in Stage Fright, the film that he directed. He was a police officer in the car outside.
That's right, yeah. And I always, you know, without going off topic, I always wondered with him, he could have been the next Argento. He had so much talent, but then he drifted, I think, into like TV work.
Yeah, I believe.
And I think he still works now. And
I think his role was uncredited as well, wasn't it? In
it was, yeah,
opera, you know. So yeah, the second death of the movie. Again, you know, pretty hardcore and that. She's the murder itself, you know, she's strangled, but then the killer, she actually I mean, I don't know how that went down her throat. I've got no idea. I mean, honestly, I don't. To me, that's impossible. But never mind. And then the killer has to rip her open. Has to
basically got to form his own sort of tracheotomy on her.
Yeah, and Betty's forced to watch. Yeah. And of course. And there's a level of restraint to it. Again, you know, the heavy metal kind of music kicks in and all that, which again, I think, personally, I find it really accompanies the scenes well. And, you know, cutting through them and that. But there's a level of restraint because we don't really see the insides and stuff. You don't need to. You just hear the sound effects. You're seeing the blade going along. You're hearing the sound effects. And I quite like it, the fact that it's not showing it.
Well, actually, that scene, he did actually shoot a more elaborate scene with more gore.
Okay.
But it got trimmed due to the censor.
Yeah.
But it does actually work better when you don't see it.
Yeah. And then, of course, they get the bracelet. I mean, there's a little bit kind of leading up to that kind of makes me laugh. It's where she kind of taunts him. She's got the bracelet and she's like, ee! As if to say, oh, look at me, I've got it. Do you remember that bit?
Yeah.
Would you really do that? Would you do that?
No.
You're fighting for your life. There's a killer with a goddamn blade trying to kill you. Would you really stand there and taunt the killer?
I quite like the character, because she's got like a bit of attitude about her.
Oh yeah, she has. Yeah. And
I love the actress personally because I really like the film Demons too. She was in that, but she got links to opera in real life. Her father was an opera director and her mother was an opera singer, so that was a little bit of trivia there. Like,
oh, okay, no, I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, you've also, that whole scene. I mean, the whole scene, the set piece is great. I mean, that's what Argento does really well. Argento creates these very effective set pieces. Yes, they may be brutal. Yes, they may be sadistic. But he often does it in such a way that it's very stylized.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, like you said, like you referred to earlier, he had this thing about killing beautiful women, but it was all done in style. And I think that caught on. I think Bava was the first one to do it, really. But Yeah, it became a trademark of Argento.
Yeah, I mean, Argento has cited so many directors as his inspiration, Bava being one of many, Ingrid Bergman, even, Fellini, and of course Hitchcock. And Argento has been called the Italian Hitchcock on many occasions.
Yeah, there's a few Hitchcock sort of references in the film, really. I've got them written down here somewhere. We might have to. Yeah, so obviously got the ravens and the crows, like the birds.
Yeah.
Which is very similar because they like pull the eyes out of in the birds the film,
Yeah.
and they sort of control people in the building. And then you got in Vertigo, you got Kim Novak's character who fakes her own death.
Yeah.
With a dummy, which is very similar.
Yeah.
And like the one I said earlier with the psycho I think it's a psycho reference where he's being stabbed in the torso quickly. So
I wouldn't have said that was Psycho personally.
But, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's just me in that. But I just want to quickly say as well, with this film, at the end of the movie, and I'm sure you've noticed this, the end of the film was shot where Phenomenal was shot in Switzerland.
Yeah, I think I love the actual contrast of the Alps. You get to see the snow in the background, and it does take you back to the opening scene in Phenomena where I believe his daughter in real life gets killed.
Yeah, Argento has a love for animals and insects, and
that's right. Yeah.
With some of the film's titles, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Cat O' Nine Tails, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, and Phenomena. Obviously very much about insects, at its core and that. He definitely has a profound love for that. And there's actually... Right, let's quickly get to the killer reveal in this film. Now, I'll admit, I'm not ashamed. I've actually got a bit of a man crush on Urbano Barberoni.
Yeah, you can see he's like really good looking.
I don't know.
I'm not gay on this.
I'm not gay, but I'm like, I don't know. Obviously, he was in Demons a couple of years prior as well.
That's right,
it's funny, obviously, because in Demons he proves to be the hero of the movie. He ends up being the hero, and in this film he's the villain. He's the killer.
I always thought in this film as well, he's like obviously in awe of the character, the lead opera singer. I always thought, because of his looks, if it was in real life, he could like date her anyway. He was, he could just ask her out. She probably would have said yes.
Well, he'd be a Ted Bundy type, wouldn't he? I reckon.
Yeah.
It'd be like, but yeah, the killer reveal. There's not a huge amount of suspects in this film. To be honest, it's not a film that's constantly pointing its finger at many characters or whatever. So I think you'd probably come to the conclusion, maybe halfway through the film, you'd probably suspect him. But obviously, it turns out that he was involved in a very sadomasochistic relationship with Betty's mother.
That's right. Yeah, we get like quite a few flashbacks throughout the film. And we sort of got to piece that together in ourselves because we see women getting killed. We see a woman looking on.
Yeah.
At the time, we do not know, the relevance of that, but we find out later that it's her, Betty's mother.
Yeah.
And he was her younger lover who was killing to basically satisfy the mother.
Yeah. Basically, I think it got to the point where she wouldn't let him touch her or whatever. Maybe it was a sex game out of hand or whatever that got out of hand, and he ended up killing her. And in a rather twisted fashion, he wants to carry that on, but with her daughter now.
Yeah, that's right. And he obviously tracks her daughter down, and she's becoming this big opera star and all that. And then, yeah, it's very... I don't know with the character, but he seems to be he's played... Did you find him quite strange as a police officer character? Whether he was told to play it like very, I don't know what the word is, just very strangely, and he don't seem connected, if you know what I mean. He seems very aloof.
I thought he did like perfectly well in the role, but yeah, I mean, to me, it was kind of like there were only two suspects in this film. It was either him or it was either the director, who ends up surviving the movie. Oh, no, actually, no. He's actually... he's killed at the end, isn't he?
Yeah, he's killed
Because I actually thought earlier, when he's attacked, I was like, why didn't the killer just kill him? Why the hell has he just been knocked out? But obviously, it was to serve a further purpose in the plot. And then there's a bit at the end, actually, where they end up in Switzerland, which is an absolutely beautiful location. And I'll just say, I've always wanted to go to Switzerland. Switzerland is one country that I'd love to visit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the scene at the end, it's where they realise the killer... I mean, I don't know how long it's taken them, because it doesn't actually tell you, I don't think, how long exactly it's been since he's been on the loose, on the run.
I think it's regarded online as being about 7 days.
Yeah, because they obviously...
Which is ridiculous, really, when you think that it took 7 days for the police to work out that it was a dummy.
Yes, it would not take 7 days. That police force, they'd all be fired. Yeah, it does not take 7 days. It should literally take 7 minutes, not 7 days.
Exactly, and it's a part of the film that obviously just does not, does not ring true. And I know a lot of people did have an issue with the film because of that.
Yeah.
But it's the only real true, lie in the film.
Well, it's kind of, it's the twist, if you will, but it's kind of a twist that it's nonsensical, and it's a twist that any modern audience member would certainly see coming. But the bit that really makes me laugh, actually, because I actually watched this last night. Now, I'll admit, I haven't seen opera nowhere near the amount of times as what I've seen, say, Deep Red or Suspiria. I've seen the film probably 4 or 5 times. It'd be a long time. So the director, he's in the house and he shouts to Betty, who just happens to be outside from a distance away, and says, "Betty, he's still alive. Run, run." So she's running, and then the killer shows up. I mean, I don't know how he quite got there and everything or whatever, but he's chasing her. And then there's like a long chase, and then the director jumps out of nowhere and tackles him.
That's right,
He was in the house a minute ago.
Yeah.
How the hell's he got there?
Again, you've got to suspend, disbelief.
I think he's been to Michael Myers and he's been learning that teleportation trick. or he's, I don't know, maybe the Flash or Usain Bolt have been giving him... but yeah, somehow he just, despite these two characters running at what's presumably full speed, he comes out of nowhere, tackles him, like, where the hell did he come from? I mean, it comes down to the editing and all that, obviously.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the actual shot of when he's chasing her at the end through the Alps, I love that shot. I don't know, I find it like really suspenseful. You've got, obviously we see tracking dogs and stuff. Yeah. So then she tries to basically, after he kills the director of the opera, she tries to talk to him then in sort of a way like Ginny in Friday the 13th Part 2 does with Jason. Yeah. Tries to get him in a false sense of security to, give her time for the police to turn up.
Yeah. It's the police arrive, save the day. They just happen to be there as well, don't they?
Yeah, apparently they were tracking him, he said, didn't he, in the film with Interpol and different, different sources like...
Yeah. Did you know that because I believe the director's name was Marco, he was actually was based on Argento himself. Did you know that?
Yeah, and I think that comes down as well to where he was in the film. He's actually dating Argento's girlfriend at the time. Okay. So they're all connected, and I think, like I said earlier, I think Dario Argento took umbrage to that and didn't really like that. Yeah. And this film spelled the end of Dario Argento's, relationship with Argento in terms of film. I know their personal relationship ended, I think, when Tenebrae was being shot. But and then she would later go on to star as a bit part in Mother of Tears. Oh yeah, as like a ghost that comes back. But it's quite sad in that regard. This was the last film they really collaborated on under any serious level.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, she basically, all right, her character in the film is almost kind of non-existent, but she has one of the best deaths in the movie. If not the best death. Arguably the best death. I mean, it's a death, it's a murder that really kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's just so incredibly well shot. I mean, it really is. This film, again, the cinematography is really good, which was kind of courtesy, I think, of Ronnie Taylor. And I think this has just got some of Argento's best camera work.
I think this is without doubt what, for me, I would probably I'd put Suspiria first, but this would kind of be joint second, or in like maybe a three-way tie with Phenomena and Tenebrae for me as his next best film. Yeah, that's how highly I regard this film.
I think this film was actually shot in Parma, wasn't it? I think it's I think it was called the Teatro Regio in Parma, which was like one of the the film's primary locations. Because Hitchcock has only ever, I don't know if you know this, he's only ever had 3 films that have been set in one city.
No,
a little bit of trivia for you. 3 films. Bird with the Crystal Plumage, The Card Player, and Tenebrae are the only 3 films that were completely set in one city.
Was that Rome or Turin?
That was Rome.
Right. Okay. So I know he used Turin a couple of times, though, didn't he? I'm
yes,
sure.
yeah, he did use Turin. He tried to veer away from Rome after a while because, Rome, it's the capital, bigger tourist population and that, and he wanted to try and, not film somewhere where it was going to be overly populated.
Oh, right, yeah, that makes sense. It's like filming in London, isn't it? Yeah.
But to me, this is probably, maybe, 2001 Sleepless, which we've talked about, and I'm sure we'll do a podcast on at some point. Sleepless, I think, is a good giallo.
I love it.
Some people would actually say that this was probably his last great one.
Well, I would argue that in terms of myself, because I think the Stendhal Syndrome was his last really great one. And again, I do like Sleepless a lot, but I think he had constraints on his budget and all that. But for me, I really like Trauma Mine, but his last really good film for me was the Stendhal Syndrome.
Yeah, I've only seen that once. I remember walking away from The Card Player, not really thinking that much of that.
I like The Card Player in so much of the fact that it's like a CSI episode, but and there's some corny stuff in there, like the ending's really corny and that. But I just got out of it, just whatever, it's just an average film. But I kind of got something out of it. And again, he done Giallo, which was made in 2009.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. Again, admittedly, it's been years. I haven't seen it since its original release. It stars Adrian Brody, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would urge you to go back to that film and watch it as a comedy. And I know that... Honestly, that's how I get pleasure from that film. I go back and I watch it as a comedy because it's pure just funny.
Yeah.
But another thing in this film, I don't know, totally, against the way the film is, it's really serious film and all that. But the one part that made me laugh was the little girl who used to go in the air duct.
Betty, I've been watching you, Betty.
Yeah, but not even that line. The line she comes out with the mother says something to her, and she says, "Yeah, you're always naked."
Oh, you're always naked.
You're always
I'm
naked.
Assuming her mum's a prostitute.
Well, it's given, we're given that way to think about that because she's always with men, or she's certainly with a man outside Becky's apartment earlier on in the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way she says that line, you're disgusting,
Yeah, the dubbing makes her sound really funny because Betty's got her own little stalker, hasn't she? Not just the killer, but this little girl that watches her.
Yeah, and that, all the air duct scenes were basically not in the US release of the film. From what I gather, I haven't gone back and watched it, but I've read up on it. And they actually cut, because we'll come to the actual last shot of the film, they actually cut the last shot of the film where she's sort of at one with nature, which we'll discuss now.
Yeah.
And they actually cut that from the American release as well. Oh. But I actually love that scene. I think it takes you back to Phenomena, where it's very similar ending.
Yeah.
And then we sort of, I don't know what you thought, but do we question whether she's mad or the whole process has made her insane?
No, I never took her as mad at the end of the movie.
Right.
No,
okay.
just how I kind of perceived it, and that she's just trying to see the beauty in things, with all that she's gone through, the traumatic ordeal, etc. That she's, I don't know, just trying to see the beauty in life now.
I think it's quite an emotional scene as well, to be honest, and he does. I think he does it in Phenomena as well, where he'll put in an actual emotional scene. I thought so anyway, and even going back just slightly with when the killer is apprehended, I actually started to kind of have a bit of sympathy for him. I know, again, it sounds wrong, but I really did, because I thought, he shouldn't have been doing what he's doing. But it was quite brutal the way they took him down.
Well, not being funny, he did brutalise quite a few people.
Yeah, I get that. But then is he, he's obviously not of the right mind.
No, but he actually says at the end, doesn't he? He actually says, what is it? I haven't committed a crime. I was just freeing their souls.
Oh, that's a great line, yeah.
Or something like that. He says something along them lines, like in his own mind, he's doing good. He's helping these people, But
did you know that they were going to do another ending totally different? to where, like, throughout the film, we were going to have Betty sing to the killer, and the kind of singing to the killer kind of, you know, it makes him draw back a bit and that. But then, you know, to stop him assaulting her.
Yeah.
And then a voice would, you know, right at the end, a voice was going to be drowned out by a waterfall. And that's where she was going to meet her death, and she was going to die at the end of the film. But for some reason, they didn't do the ending.
I knew there was going to be an alternate ending. Yeah, I wasn't sure as to the details and all that. But yeah, I mean, just the imagery in the film, like I said, with the Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens play a big part in the story. They're the ones that essentially, show the killer. They're the ones that reveal the killer. And,
I think that's a genius move from Argento.
Yeah,
where they actually put that as the plot of, you know, we can find out who he is. I think that's absolute genius.
You know, and the makeup effects were good. They were really good. Obviously, the killer actually has his eye removed, and again, getting with like the imagery, just the imagery of Betty with them blades underneath her eye. You know, I especially love the use of lighting. For example, the shot. As I said, visually speaking, it might not be as, say, proficient as, say, Suspiria, but still, there's some really good cinematography in this film, and I love that shot of where it's during the second murder, I believe, and she's against the wall.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, like, bluely lit, and just the razor blades, and when you get them close-ups, and you can see, like, little bits of blood on them razor blades underneath her eyes.
Yeah, the scene you're on about is kind of, it's got the same feel, to say, like the bluish tint of Tenebrae. But then later on in the film, we got lots of red. We got like a reddy, which he done obviously with Deep Red, and he done with Suspiria.
Yeah.
So red plays quite a big part in the film.
Yeah.
Towards, you know, certainly in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. There was a highlight on strong colours in the film. I think Argento said there was no kind of palette colour like Suspiria had, but there were definitely colours that were specifically highlighted. And, you know, also kind of the encounter that they have in the house where the opera is playing through the record player, the music.
Yeah,
you get that opera. That really accompanies the scene really well as well, I thought, having that opera music playing while there's this kind of like cat and mouse game going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the whole soundtrack, you've got, like you say, you've got opera, you've got the metal music, which I think is superb, and you've got, I think there's like a Bill Wyman piece as well, which plays. I think the music in this film is, whilst I wouldn't put it up there with Suspiria or maybe the music in Deep Red, which is on a different level.
Yeah,
it's certainly really good. I would say it's certainly one of the highlights of the film.
My favourite piece of music by Gobling, or just music from any Argento film, is probably still Suspiria. That would probably be at number one. And Tenebrae, then Deep Red. I don't know. I'm very torn, actually. I mean, it's very much kind of a toss-up what goes into second place for me. I'd be very torn between Tenebrae and Deep Red.
Well, I'd probably surprise you and say that possibly Suspiria is my top one, but I would say Sleepless. I really like the score to Sleepless.
That I need to return to. I've actually got it on Blu-ray. I've seen the film about 3 or 4 times. It's just been such a long time since I've seen it.
Well, that's a film we're definitely going to cover.
Yeah.
We are definitely going to cover that one. But did you realise, I think I texted you last night, that Bob Geldof was supposed to be playing the director in this film?
Yes, which I was completely unaware of.
And that would have been totally different.
Bob Geldof in an Argento. Saying that, though, who thought Donald Pleasance, a British thespian, a theatrically trained actor in an Argento film,
with a very dodgy
with a chimp.
And a very dodgy Scottish accent.
Yes.
I should say.
With a goddamn murdering chimp. I mean, you can't make it up, can you?
A razor-wielding chimp.
Yeah. So, no.
I love that film.
So, yeah, I think, overall, I think Opera is a really solid giallo. Not quite in my top 3 Argento films, but it's certainly one of his better movies, without a doubt. Very stylised, effective set pieces, and certainly, one of the more sadistic. I mean, what... Now, admittedly, right, Card Player, Trauma, they're giallos Stendhal Syndrome, they're giallos I've not seen for a long time. Would you say this is one of his most sadistic film?
Possibly, yeah, I would probably say it is the most sadistic.
Okay.
Card Player's quite I think it was made more of like a TV film. But yeah, I can't think of anything as statistic as this.
Yeah, because just the whole concept of it, being forced to watch a murder committed and then being let go, and the killer actually says to them during the course of the film, doesn't he? He actually says when she's tied up, what is it? I'm trying to remember his words now. He says something along the lines of, I can get you whenever I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to come and get you whenever I want, whenever I please, or whatever.
And it's like he doesn't want to kill her because obviously I think like he's in love with her, and him by doing all these killings and making her watch is some sort of sexual, perversion of his.
Yeah, yeah.
So in no way does he really want to kill her until that final scene in the Alps. And obviously, he gets stopped. But I personally, I think this is, well, anyone listening to this who has not seen opera, I urgently recommend you to, buy the Blu-ray today.
Well, Argento actually said that Christina Marchak is the most difficult actor he's ever worked with. He actually
and that's
said
saying
that.
something.
Yeah.
Because he really hated Tony Mazzante, man.
Yeah.
From Bird with a Crystal Plumage. So she come across apparently as like the bloody diva of the film.
Yeah,
in real
speaking
life.
of the diva, Mara Chakova at the beginning, I love it because, he really kind of goes all out right with the beginning. We get this POV kind of like shot. She's, all of these people following her. She's a right goddamn diva, isn't she? She's complaining about the Ravens, how they're looking at her and blah, blah, and all that. And then she gets hit by a car, doesn't she, very quick. Now, he did that, didn't he? That's the killer that run her over, or not?
Yeah, that's the killer trying to basically... So Betty becomes now the actual star of the opera. So,
okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, because I thought that is... Because is it ever actually established... Because the killer did actually give her the telephone call and say, tonight you make your debut in Lady Macbeth. So I just assumed the killer had done that, engineered it, so she got that part.
Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. I think it's safe to say we both like opera. I think a really good Argento movie. The next giallo we do would probably be... I'm kind of like etching towards either Tenebrae or Sleepless. I'll just say that Tenebrae is one of my favourite Argento films. Certainly.
I think we might be doing a collab on that though, from what I know.
Oh, okay.
But certainly Sleepless I would be up for.
Yeah, cool. So we'll keep you posted anyway, and thanks a lot to everyone that listened, and we will be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. I do believe there are actually a couple of shout-outs that I'd like to do. If you're interested in films, TV shows, etc., there's Zoe Crawford, who actually has a YouTube channel. He's certainly worth checking out. And I've recently met a short filmmaker by the name of Jason. His surname is actually escaping me, but they've got a couple of films in the pipeline at The Macabre and Seasons, which is going to be an anthology, and you can actually check that out on Indiegogo. Any support, any help, massively appreciated. So The Macabre and Seasons. So thanks a lot to everyone that listened, and we will be back again soon. Take care.
And just want to say thanks again to everyone who listened again, and it was really enjoyable. This was, and take care and see you all again soon.
Goodbye.